plan with 9th Avenue a arterial. The comprehensive plan recommends arterials to be 80 feet in width, 40 and 40 divided down the center line of the street. And before the recording of this certified survey map, we didn't have the full 40 feet on the south side of West 9th, so that was a recommendation for approval of the certified survey map. The 80 feet is generally required for arterials, which typically include 4-lane streets, and then the extra width allows for public sidewalk, and then plenty of space for terrace trees and snow storage area. So with that, this is just a copy of the CSM showing the proposed dedication. And with that, staff is recommending approval of the right-of-way dedication as proposed.
Technical questions. Kathy?
Does this mean there's a problem with the south side of the street on right-of-way?
There's not a problem.
I mean, but would we ideally be squeezing off footage from other properties if they came in, or?
Eventually, are you saying like?
Well, I'm wondering why these two, I know they're under construction, but would other properties along the south side be asked to donate, sell right-of-way also?
Like 2163, 21.
Yeah, like for example, if West 9th Avenue is reconstructed down the line,
Right.
the city may approach property owners to dedicate additional right-of-way to get the full 80, the entire length of 9th.
So the full 80, the length of 9th does not have
Correct, yes.
80 feet right now.
Some areas are kind of sawtoothed, I guess you can say, where you have the 66-foot right-of-way, and then there's a small section of 7. Yeah, that's an example right there.
I mean, ideally, it should be officially mapped is what it should be done, so everybody
Okay.
knows coming in. I mean, that we should just officially map everything. We just haven't gotten around to doing that. But during the land division times, these are the times per the subdivision ordinance that you can require that dedication, so that's why it's, and in this instance, because it's an arterial, so we're requiring the extra dedication. Totally
Okay.
correct, though, we need to be thinking broader so that we can have, see, we have extra wide right-of-way here. That pattern, if this is gonna be a true arterial, that needs to go all the way out as
Okay.
far as.
Okay, thank you.
Any other technical questions? Okay, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Okay, back to the commission.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Pop,
Aye.
Bowen,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Kiefer,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Okay, moving on to item number 2, rezone outlot 1 of certified survey map or CSM at 7330 from institutional to corporate business park with a planned development overlay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we kind of began the discussion on last week during the 2 general development plans we have, when the additional right-of-way was dedicated for the future extension of Keller/Rath Lane, we created that small, approximately 30,000 square foot outlot on the south side of the property. Property remained institutionally zoned. At this time, staff is recommending that we rezone that property from institutional to the corporate business park with planned development overlay to match the immediate property to the south as well as the Oshkosh Corp site. That property in and of itself, with the shape and size that it is largely unusable as an institutional zone parcel. And as the right-of-way dedication talks proceed, there is still that potential of a land swap with the adjacent developer. Just trying to set it up that should that land swap take place in the future, this property already has that appropriate zoning district, and that developer could move forward with their building plans. So here's kind of the zoning map that shows we just have that small sliver of institutionally zoned property remaining, and we want to join it with the same zoning district as the adjacent parcels. So staff is recommending approval of the zoning from institutional to corporate business park with a plea overlay.
All right, thank you. Technical questions, anybody? All right, okay, go ahead, Ed.
I think it says in the staff report, but this, any land swap here has to come back
Correct. I mean, it'll have to go
through
through
and-
land
This is not
disposition.
the land swap.
This is not the land swap.
This
This
is a
just strict
rezone
zoning.
of excess.
All of those details would still have to go through the proper procedures before
Okay.
anything would happen.
Other technical questions, folks? All right, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Okay, back to the commission.
Move to approve?
Second. Any discussion on that motion? All right, call the roll.
Crop,
Aye.
Bowen,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Kiefer,
Aye.
Harry. Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Item number 3, residential design standards variance request to permit a new home on an infill site with a front setback less than the smallest front setback of the abutting properties at 4428 Island View Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a design standards variance request for a setback for for new home on an infill site, which is less than the setbacks of the abutting properties. Here's an aerial view of the subject site. It is located on Island View Drive, south of Sunnyview Road. It is zoned SR5 LRO and is also in the Shoreland Overlay District. The property to the north has about a 41-foot setback. The subject property has about a 31-foot setback within which is the existing home, and they're proposing to demolish that home and build a new home. The existing house to the south has a 35-foot setback. And here's the proposed site plan, which has a 25-foot front yard setback and a 75-foot rear yard setback, which is required as it is in the shoreline overlay. A design standards variance is necessary as the proposed 25-foot setback is less than the smallest setback of the adjoining properties, which is 35 feet. There is a hardship at play here, as the 75-foot setback required in the shoreline overlay is more than what's typically required, which is usually about 25 feet. So there's that hardship at play. Also, the new home will be minimally setback minimally less than what was there right now, which is 31 feet, so reduced by about 6 feet. So staff feels it is still in character with the surrounding area. And here are the front and rear elevations. And here are the side elevations. And staff recommends approval of the variance request to permit a new home on an infill site with a front setback less than the smallest setback of the abutting properties at the subject site, with the findings that the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, and due to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the zoning ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship.
All right, thank you, sir. Technical questions? Go ahead, Tom.
Can I see the satellite view again, the first slide? Thank you.
Any other technical questions? Okay, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Okay, back to the commission.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Oh, pardon me, call the roll. Getting excited.
Nice try.
Excited.
Rob,
Aye.
Bowen,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Kiefer,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
Item number 4, comprehensive land use plan map amendment for property located on the south side of State Highway 91 between Clareville Road and State Highway 44.
All right, it's back. So, this is something we've discussed over the last year a couple times. This is the comprehensive land use amendment. It had originally gone through Plan Commission, got supported at the Plan Commission level. But it went to council, I forget if that's November 28th meeting. Council kicked it back to staff for further, back to the Plan Commission for further discussion. That's where we tried to coordinate that meeting with the Plan Commission and the Go EDC, Industrial Development Committee. We couldn't do that. So I met with the Industrial Development Committee separately on 2/21/18. And as we'll get to in a little bit, the Industrial Development Committee supported either our original proposal, or, as I put in there, Proposal 2, which limited the land use change to the subject property, the original, the Sidursky one that they're looking for, and all those lands to the. So I'll just go over some of the maps again. Here's the area that we were looking at. The subject property that started the request is right over here. And then from a planning basis, just to refresh, we went over and we looked at it from an overall basis. What should we be doing in this area? We did those calculations of absorption rates for industrial and all that stuff. And so we looked at it and we thought, okay, we have so much industrial in this area that we could probably look at putting some more uses in there, because we thought we had about 100 years of industrial lands in our own industrial parks. Then you start to look at all those areas that we have mapped out. I think we took it out several hundred years. So I thought, let's take a look at that and maybe promote some different uses in that area. So that's when we came up. We had originally come up with the idea we looked at this entire area, and we got some pushback, rightfully so, from some of the people, especially over here by the co-op, where you have more intense rail activity, and so they were concerned. So we kind of backed it off to this line. This is where Atlas comes through, or Global Parkway comes through. So we backed it to that line and said, okay, let's look at this area. From here to here, we'll recommend having a kind of a commercial, and at that time it was commercial mixed use area, because currently all of our zones are SMU, allow residential, multiple family via the conditional use permit. So I said, okay, we'll put a SMU in over here. We'll annex that as a PD and have to go through all those processes. So we hear all these concerns, like we might be concerned about noise emanating from over here or future edges over here. Environmentally, we can do things with setbacks, berming, architectural design standards. We can look at all that as part of this process. So we were comfortable recommending this change because we know we have enough institutional controls that we can control the development going forward for any of these concerns. So that's what we ended up recommending. Option 2, when we talked about with the industrial development community, we came up with another option. Of course, the other option, we just keep it as it is. We don't think that's the right option, but we can't do it that way. We said, all right, if we just hold the line from here, we're the subject property that triggered this request, if we just change that all the way down to the intersection here, at least it accommodates this area. It allows for this development to potentially move forward, and then it gives some certainty for future land use in this area on the eastern part. A concern, that I've raised, and I'll raise, continue, again, is that, okay, so we could put residential over here, but now I put a situation up where I'm going to potentially put heavy industrial right on their west flank. So, which is why I always wanted to use this kind of which is why I always wanted to use this, because we thought that at some point a road will come down through here to serve this area. So we'd use that road as a buffer between commercial and industrial over here to the west. So our concern with this one, which I'll get to, I think we can live with if that's the way the Plan Commission wants to go with it. This one, we still control, we, the city, controls the land use in this area going forward. It's not going to develop in the town as an industrial park or anything else in the town. So what we can do is, as these areas develop, or same thing as with this particular piece, we control land use coming in. We can place a PD on it with certain conditions. We could do the same thing here. If, say, this wanted to develop in the future as industrial, we could say things like, we want it only to be in light industrial uses. We could build buffers in. We could build things like that into any zoning that comes into the south. Well, until the state takes away that ability for us to do that, like they've shown a propensity to do in recent years. But for right now, we're still recommending that we go. We're still recommending this particular option. We think it gives us the most flexibility, but we understand that there's some concern at the council level. So I'm not sure where their concern yet lies with this one or with this particular scenario. We're still, as part of our recommendation, we're still recommending for this, but if we come back with option 2, we can still work with option 2 because we're going to control the land use going forward. And if we put residential here, if somebody wants to put heavy manufacturing in this area, we're going to be concerned with that. We're going to say no. We're going to say we want you to put light industrial. Light industrial can live next to multiple family. It can live next to single family. So we know that, with zoning, we can control this land use going into the future. So this is just it's going back to September 19th, so it's just one. This shows the parcel that initiated the request. This shows the existing land use, or the land use map. This kind of showed that this was that broader area. When we started looking at the industrial in our community, we have wide swaths of the community open for industrial. We got so much open for industrial that if we do everything in industrial and there's no market for industrial, we have to look at other uses. When we did this plan years ago, it's when we were absorbing a heck of amount of lands in the industrial parks that we were getting ready to run out. We only had like a 2 to 3 year supply of industrial park. We wanted to have 5 years. So we went through this broader process, and we did this with our land use plan. And the land use plan that we're in the current process of updating right now, we reflected that on our land use map. This was the original study that kind of set the stage for this area. So this is the area that we're dealing with. This is kind of when Foth did the study for us back in was it the early 2000s. We thought we could shoot a road through here. That probably is not going to happen. We probably will have to take it out here to Clareville. But this is how we originally envisioned this coming together. Now the big problem today is there's a lot of wetlands in there, so we don't even know how much of this is actually developable. We know the subject parcel is relatively developable because they've got pretty clean soil on there. Here's that map. So you see the brown stuff, that's all areas where there's potentially hydric soils, where we have potentially impacted or wetland soils. So just the development pattern moving forward, even if we go with proposal 2, here's the subject properties right here. You see this heavy band of brown in there? That's potentially wetland type soil. So there could be a concern on that. From a development standpoint, I'm saying. Here's just an overall aerial. You can see how dark that soil is over here. Again, those things can be dealt with. It makes things more difficult. So that's just an aerial. This is a map showing, this is again last year, this showed our industrial inventory, our industrial lands inventory, right Jeff? That's what that is. So this shows all those vacant industrial lands that we actually have kind of in the city. Well, this is all the stuff that was in the city. Some might have sold since then, but you can see we have a pretty good inventory of industrial lands available right now. And then we have a pretty good area planned out as well. This shows the multiple family. The reason why we were somewhat supportive of residential in this area is we don't have a lot of multiple family kind of in this quadrant of the community. We've just put some over here. We have this that hasn't developed over here, potentially over here, and then we're seeing growth at both of our fringes on the edges of the city. There's a market for people living on the edge of the city, and a market for people living in the middle of the city. We're trying to hit both markets. So this is just showing that there are some vacant inventory out there, but it's not a lot in this particular area. Like this is controlled by Midwest, and they've been wanting to put condos there, and I hope that moves forward. This also is controlled by Midwest right now. I don't know if they're going to put condos or apartments there at one point. Which one is this one? This was just a residential land inventory, just showing around the community. We do have some residential vacant lands available. The green is just the residential stuff. You can see a big swath up here in the northwest that we've been trying to get to take off. Again, here we're back to the proposal. This would be option 1, which takes it to takes it out the entire way. Which one is this, Jeff? This is the green stuff is areas that we can actually develop. And now I'm just inundating you with maps. So this was us just playing around what we do, looking at trying to figure out if we could develop a land use pattern in here with roads and streets and things like that. So if we did something like this is where the parcel is. You could do something like this with commercial, with a ring road, something like that. I think we still have to look at the bottom side below 91. I think we're going to take that up as part of the comprehensive plan update process. So that was us just being planners and playing around. So option one, this is the option that we're still recommending for the reasons that we've discussed, or option two, we can work with both of these. We can work with option two just from a standpoint of we know that we control the zoning coming forward in the future in this area. So with that, I'll turn it back over.
All right, thank you, sir. Technical questions, Kelly?
Go back to the map, which has both areas superimposed on each other.
Do I have that?
Yeah, you
Good?
no.
No,
No.
no, Joe.
Boy.
Option one and option two?
Yeah, and where it showed, option one,
All right, hold on.
well, you have it, anyway.
Okay,
If
not
you can
sure.
find it.
where it is.
Before those maps,
All right.
sorry.
No,
But
it's all
it's gonna be easier, yeah, that one,
All right, there we go.
that one. Where is the intermodal transport facility if it happens?
That's over up into here. Which was a concern, Ray. You know, we put the what I didn't cover is the old staff reporter, is we did have some communications from them being concerned about having residential land uses coming in this particular area. Not just by
Okay.
by us changing it doesn't mean that's going to happen, but I can understand the concern that they have.
Okay. And maybe we needed a little bit larger map to show, I like that map, but anyhow, to show a little better where it is in relationship to this parcel. Not
Well,
that big.
Well, I mean, it's right, here's Global coming through here.
Okay.
It's literally right outside of this little area here.
Oh, okay,
So it's
all right,
literally right in here.
okay, thank you.
I don't have the distance on that.
And that intermodal facility is happening?
Where's Kelly? I believe so.
Well,
Yeah.
somebody can respond to that if they're sure.
I mean, we're working on it. We're
Okay.
working on it.
Okay,
Okay.
that's all.
I mean,
John.
you are going to see requests for land use changes in there, or things like that. So something will be coming to you at some point here in the near future.
Okay.
John?
If we approve option one, will the council be able to then come back and approve option two because it's a smaller version of the option that we're?
Sure.
Okay, I'm just.
Sure.
So
Yep.
going forward, if we approve option one.
You recommend
giving
option
the
one?
council options, if they're not
still have
comfortable with
two
that big
options.
area, they can still go to the smaller area, so,
You
okay.
can do
We're
it. They
just
can do option
we're
one,
just a recommending body.
Yeah, but that was my point.
or do nothing. I mean, you can do nothing too. I mean, remember, that's always the option that's out there.
Right.
Any other technical questions? Okay, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Okay, back to the commission.
Thought they'd be here.
Make a motion to approve option one.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
Kath?
No, I just want to say that option one makes sense.
I
It
would
still
agree.
makes sense to have it that large. And so I hope that the council will go ahead with it.
I agree. I would just add a thank you to the petitioners for being patient. This is not,
Yes.
this has not been an overnight process, as you know. Any other comment? Yeah, any other comments before we take a vote? Okay, let's call the roll.
Prop,
Aye.
Owen,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Kiefer,
Aye.
Perry,
No.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-1.
Final item for today's meeting, number 5, approval of the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan.
All right, Ray, how do you want to handle this? You want to start with just an overview of what the plan is, and I'll go into some of the specific implications from a plan commission standpoint. I have slides set up. Do you have a separate set of slides or not?
I do not. Do you want me to start, Darren?
Start.
All right. Thank you. And if you recall, Our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan is a document that, per DNR, is required to be updated every 5 years. The last plan that we had adopted was 2011, 2012, so it took us through 16 into 17. What we did to get rolling on this update, back in February of 2017, we hired Rettler Corporation. John Kinnear is here from Rettler, so if there's any questions specific that you might have as far as the process that I can't answer, John is here as well to support. So we started in February of 2017, and I believe you received a copy of the document, so I'll just reference a couple pages as we go through. Essentially, we start out with the Advisory Parks Board on reviewing and updating goals and objectives for the document. Those goals and objectives are contained on pages 4 through 8. So we went through that process with the Parks Board. What we do following that is we work with John and his staff and actually do a facility inventory. We update the 2011 plan on items or projects that have been completed, and then we take a look at items. If you recall, we go through each park and we have high, medium, and low priority projects. So hopefully we are checking off a lot of those high priority projects, and as they get checked off, the other medium and low will move up, or other projects may be added for some site specifics. So we updated the facility inventory. That document, or those pages, are pages 20 to 35. What we then do is go through a needs assessment and citizen input portion. We have public input meetings. We did an online survey again this year. I'd have to find the numbers. I think we had 641 people respond to our online survey, as well as 7 handwritten surveys, so about 650 individuals roughly. So we go through that information. That helps us determine what the public would like to see at certain parks or see in future parkland. The needs assessment, citizen input sections are pages 58 to 67 in the document. What we then do is we take all that information, as well as from the Parks Board, and I got to step back because we used a citizen or a user group survey that we had completed with the Convention Visitors Bureau back in 2016. And what that did is we took a look at all of our athletic facilities throughout the city, from baseball, softball, football. So we didn't feel we had to duplicate that because that was already completed in 2016. So we looked at that information as well as all the other citizen input we received throughout this process, and that's how we start to generate some specific goals and specific projects for each site. There's some general recommendations you'll be able to take a look at on pages 69 to 77, and then site-specific projects from pages 78 to 107. What we then do is we bring those projects back to the Parks Board. We work with them to, again, place them on a high, medium, or a low priority. And then Rettler will go back in and insert some project costs for each of those individual project items. What we also do through the project is there's a couple of maps in the document. One is the existing park service area map, based on the park being a neighborhood park, community park, or whatever type of park facility it is. It serves a certain radii around that park. So that service area map is on page 40, I believe, in the document, or right in that area. What that helps us do is to start to take a look at areas of deficiency in the city where we currently don't have enough parkland, which then leads us to our next step as far as a parkland acquisition map, and that is on page 42. It's going to be in that general area. I still have a draft, so I'm working off of those numbers. So you'll find those two important maps, and I think that's where this your plan commission really wants to focus on with us is the future parkland acquisition. We worked with Darren and his staff to take a look at developments that are currently in the plans that are coming forward through any plan process, as well as what Darren and his staff know coming in the future. We identified areas that are deficient in the parkland, and we mapped those in this document. That's how we got here. Darren, if you want to take it from here, then I can answer questions.
Well, yeah, Ray gave you a big overview of what's in there. And I went through the document looking for specific kind of plan commission implications, things that we'll be wrestling with, and I kind of called those out. We'll just briefly go over them. Well, that's a mission statement. Oshkosh provides a park and recreation system that will meet the needs of our current residents and future generations. Enhance the quality of life. Purpose, we go a little bit into the purpose of the plan. Approval of this plan will maintain city eligibility to apply for and receive federal state grants. And then there's a map of the map of the current park facilities in the community. Here is just a little thing, talking about those national park standards and what we should try and have specifically per 1,000 residents. And you can see that we're a little shy of that. This was a comparison of what's going. This is from the plan again. A comparison of how we compare to some of our neighbors in the state. Now, some of the specific goals. This is where I clip some of that stuff. Goals: maintain an adequate amount of active and passive recreational lands to meet the current and future recreational needs. And this is where this is where when we do subdivision developments, potentially when we start doing mapping, we've talked about that. Acquire additional lands for passive park use based on current demand, projected demand, and environmental significance as recommended by this plan. Acquire appropriate developable land for active recreational facilities and areas targeted for future development. Remember, during this whole plan, the comprehensive plan update process, we really kind of focused on our park needs, and there's people that just wanted to put a dot on some of these land uses, and you can't. Again, you have to analyze all those things. We know we have some park deficiencies, but we also know that we either got to get to the process of mapping out some of those parks, or as subdivisions develop, we start looking at those individually. Preserve environmentally sensitive and historically significant areas, potentially conservancy lands, incorporate and promote natural features such as floodplains, identify and incorporate historical entities in the development of city parks. I mean, that goes back to, was it Rockland Park, where I think we still have the big
smokestack.
the big smokestack sitting there. Consider implementing implementing parks playground land for athletic fields, and this is one we'd have to have some discussion on, but it's a way you can fund park facilities, and we've been, we haven't really talked about it, but it's in the plan, and we should at some point talk about it. Impact fee to help develop park facilities to meet future needs. Right now, we just have a parkland dedication ordinance is not keeping up, but the parkland dedication ordinance is much lower level than what a park impact fee is. Park impact fees are not as common around here as they are in the southeastern part of the state. In the southeastern part of the state, there's impact fees all over the place. Coordinate with neighborhood associations and the planning division on park improvements to be funded through the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. That's something we've been doing quite a bit through recent years. I think when you see the Great Neighborhoods program, you see a lot of park stuff coming through the system. Right now, we're just doing park planning for Sawyer Creek, right, Ray?
Correct, yes.
And in recent years, we've done playgrounds, things like that. Coordinate, and this is what we do quite common, and it's nice that we haven't seen subdivisions for a while, but we're starting to see some subdivision activity. Coordinate subdivision review with all departments and boards to ensure adequate park facilities as provided. And here's one where we'll have to talk a little bit more about it, is continually evaluate and update the subdivision section of municipal code so that it adequately addresses the park and recreational needs of city residents. Our current parkland dedication ordinance is pretty old. It's been, I don't remember the last time we updated it. It's been a while. So I think we should really look at that moving forward so we have enough parkland. Use extraterritorial plat review powers to ensure residential developments outside the city limits are contributing. Extraterritorial plat review powers are changing in the state, so what the options that we had years ago changed, seems like on a session basis down at the legislature. Coordinate with surrounding townships to ensure adequate park facilities are being developed in those townships, and we do try and coordinate with them, and we talk about that stuff. The stuff on Ripple, we talked a little bit about with Black Wolf on that one. We've talked about Algoma, where we can get some combined trails, so we do talk with the surrounding townships. Provide residents with multi-purpose trail systems that utilize environmental corridors and provide linkages between parks and other appropriate features. Of course, we're using the City of Oshkosh ped and bike circulation plan to help in that. We're also currently updating that plan. So this year, within the next couple months, you'll probably see something coming out on that. Continue to implement the Fox River Corridor Riverwalk plan. Look at what we've done in the 12, 13 years since we've adopted that. Moved to the south side, and we're going to finish that off. Secure additional lands along environmental corridors to ensure public control. Develop trail systems that are barrier-free, multiple uses. We've really been working on that in recent years. And then connect local trails to the regional trail system of adjoining township trail systems. Look at what we can do potentially on the Lakeshore Golf Course, connecting to the Heritage Trail, going to the Wheel Wash, and creating this great loop. I have this idea that we can hopefully get to the west or Algoma at some point. Gotta get over the highway. So what Ray's requesting is that we adopt or recommend the corp plan for adoption, and at that point, when we're updating the comprehensive plan, we will incorporate as by reference with the comprehensive plan. The corp plan does not conflict, from our reading, with the comprehensive plan.
Questions for Ray, as long as he's kind enough to join us today? Go ahead, Kath.
The Oshkosh Northwestern had a terrific article today, and which says, we need more parks. And I think that says it all. And then they went on to describe how nearby communities, as Darren pointed out, don't have. I mean, they have way more parkland than we do. One of the criticisms of the 2011 plan that was probably well taken was that the county park was not included, but I noticed that it is included in this plan in terms of parkland in our area. Is that right?
It was included in the 11 plan as well as all the school sites. The reason why we don't include it in our calculations is because it's not under city control. It could potentially be sold off or whatever else may happen in the future. So John and I had that discussion. That's one of the reasons why we don't reference that as serving our population, although we know it serves a large population on the north. It's not under our control. Similar to the school district facilities, those facilities could eventually be sold off or something could happen to those, and it's not under our direct control on how to maintain that.
Because the numbers were different in this plan than in the 2011 plan, and I thought that it was because the county park was included, so
No.
technically it was not.
It's not included
For-
in
for,
our, it is in the
number-
per thousand numbers, it is not. Those includes just the city parkland numbers.
And I think in the core plan itself, that is consistent amongst those cities too, right?
Yes.
Oh, it is? Okay. Okay, that's good. How can we jumpstart parks development?
Parks development or acquisition? Because,
Both. Well, but, acquisition right now, I think is what I'm thinking.
well, and again, Darren and I have had this discussion. I've been here since 2010, and up until a year and a half or 2 years ago, I don't think we acquired any parkland because of the economy and slow development in this area. I think you look at some of these communities that have more park space. I think you're seeing that these communities were growing at the time where Oshkosh might not have been, some of these smaller communities, Kimberly and a few of those other ones. So we're starting to see some development here. To the south, we recently acquired some parkland, and as you guys know, we bring it to you for that approval. The Parks Board is in the same page as the Plan Commission, saying we need to no longer accept the fees in lieu of land dedication. We need park space.
Yeah.
So that's the focus that I'm bringing forward, and I think as the economy and the development world starts to turn around, we're going to see more of that. And I think there's also the opportunity, we do have the fund that is set up for the fees in lieu of land dedication that we need to start taking a look at. All right, we're going to, if we acquire 5 acres of parkland for a development on the south side, maybe we need to start acquiring and purchasing some additional parkland to expand that.
Okay. Perhaps this impact fee concept can be considered more carefully.
And the impact fee would be for the development, not for the acquisition. So the acquisition, the fee or the parkland dedication takes care of us getting the property. The impact fee would help us then get that developed versus having the city having to budget it in our CIP for development costs. But I agree, and it would be a hurdle, but it is not uncommon in southeastern Wisconsin to have some pretty hefty impact fees.
It seems to me that the last time we did a subdivision, it was something like $200
Yep.
a lot.
Yep. That's
But that's-
$400
Nothing.
total.
That's pathetic
Yeah,
in terms of helping out, so.
yes.
Well, thanks for your good work.
Couple observations, compliments, and maybe a question in there. something we've noticed about, our family's noticed about this city is there seem to be a really nice amount of what I would call pocket parks. We call it Idaho Potato Park, but there's one on Idaho. There's one off Allerton, and then Abbey Park near our house. Those parks may be small in size, but they have great impact and value. And just by living where we do, I see little kids and families playing at that little park all the time. And as a neighbor, the fact that they don't have bathrooms is good for the neighborhood. People come and then they go. And when
They
you
don't
put
go.
and when you put in
They don't go.
when you put in
They
when
go.
you put in the equipment for the little kids, then the teenagers go elsewhere. So whatever the strategy is, keep that going. The other nice observation is, and this may be a happy accident, but it has to do a little bit with how you work with the schools, and I'm not exactly sure how this works from a planning standpoint, but on a pleasant summer evening, I vividly remember taking one of my children to swimming lessons at Oshkosh West, and some girls were doing fast pitch softball in the adjacent field. Some people were running on the track, and across the street you had Pollock Pool full of people. You had the skateboard park full of people. You had Red Arrow Park where every single baseball diamond was being done. A great night for Dairy Queen, by the way. And is there a focus on that kind of? I mean, that was a happy accident, I know, with all the. But it's like it clearly was a recreational center, and almost every nice summer night is like that in that particular. Do you work with? I mean, I know it's mentioned here, but how do you work with the schools and how do you work with the university to sort of plan for the future?
Sure. We work with the school pretty closely depending on where the park is or the type of project. As Darren said, through the Healthy Neighborhood Initiatives, there are certain things we did at Carl Traeger School, which helped out getting some playground out of there, because that's really their neighborhood park is Traeger School. We have a lot of trails out there, but there's really nothing active. As we're doing, we're in the process of doing a master plan for Roosh Park, which is again adjacent to Traeger. It's about 42 acres, I think. Working with Rutler on that. We actually have a meeting this Thursday evening at the Traeger School at 6:30. This will be our second public input meeting for that. What we do is we're generating ideas for further trail connections to the school. We'll meet with school staff. We know that they're going to be updating the athletic fields at Traeger School, so the ball diamonds and soccer fields are going to be improved. And what we're trying to do is coordinate some better access for future subdivisions to get walking trails to get to their facilities, as well as talking about getting safely across to the YMCA and some other. So depending on the location, we work very closely with the schools and get their principals involved in the planning process as well, because they know where the children are transversing from.
I'm thinking like Franklin School too, because there's no park kind of near there, but their playground area is really.
Yeah, and what we'll do, we'll actually get calls from the principals at some of the schools asking our staff to come in and help choose some of the playground equipment so that we're not duplicating certain things. So we do have that open communication.
Another observation for the city staff, I think we played a role in this. When new apartments go in, now we've got kind of the play area, which I think plays into all this. I just noticed the apartments that are now behind A&W, which are hugely improved. If you've been back there,
Cumberland Court.
yeah, and hugely improved. They added a playground,
Yeah.
which is it all. To me, it's all connected. But other thoughts from the commission? Go ahead, Ed, and then Thomas.
So I kind of piggybacking on Tom's, between the county and the school district, which are sort of uncontrolled by you guys, the other entity, the other public entity that owns meaningful quantities of land within the city would be, for lack of a better term, I guess the Department of Public Works. I mean, it's stormwater, that sort of stuff. Do you guys work with them at all? I know obviously South Park, the redevelopment of South Park has a significant sort of stormwater management component to
Correct.
it. Are there opportunities when, I'm thinking, for instance, the large detention basin system that they're doing between Maine and Jackson, north of Linwood, or whatever that is up there. I don't know that lends itself to anything like that, but have you guys explored any other opportunities? Are there any other instances other than South Park where you guys have sort of tried to dovetail those efforts with the sort of the stormwater management function? Because I kind of feel like you can potentially, they're buying that land anyway, right? They're acquiring it anyway. Are there opportunities for sort of passive recreational type things in that type of setting? Have you guys explored that at all? How do you deal with that?
Sure. Well, let me touch on two of them that we have worked closely on with engineering staff, Public Works. You touched on South Park. That was a huge cooperative between us and the stormwater and engineering. The other one I'm thinking about is Mary Jewel, the lift station, as well as the restroom that's being constructed there.
Sure.
That's one where the utility did not have to go out and purchase property, came to us and they said, is there an opportunity or space that we could put up this facility and at the same time provide a restroom for the park? So we have those conversations. As far as around the stormwater ponds, I think we haven't
It's not
gone
a
there.
perfect opportunity.
Yeah, and
I
it's
get that. But
yeah, it's the fear of getting kids closer to water at times,
Right.
and I think when we have those opportunities to do something collaboratively, we're definitely looking at those, whether it's with DPW or RDA on certain properties.
Sure.
So we definitely stay in the loop on those.
Okay.
Kath, and then Thomas. Wait, Thomas first. Then
Building
Kath.
on what Ed said,
Right.
just a trail for the, you're talking about the North Industrial Park.
Yeah,
That had
that big
has that big
basin
detention
system
basin
out there.
plan. Just a trail, call it a sidewalk around, I mean, if there's room.
Yep.
And then that's recreation for adults, and mostly there aren't gonna be kids up there anyway.
It's something we can look at, but it is when you put such a facility in, you're going to attract kids. You're going to attract people to that site, and there's some people that feel, as you guys probably hear, we should fence those ponds in so that they're not a hazard or a danger. I think there's an opportunity, but I think we have to be careful on which ones we pick and choose. If we have a trail around there, we need to make sure that the police and other people have access to view the site, or if there's certain things that go on. So there's a couple other things that play into it, but definitely each site could provide an opportunity.
Okay.
Thomas.
So, listening to some of the comments here and Chairperson mentioning what a great situation he has, where he has 3 or 4 assets very close to his home, pocket parks. I live in an area of the city that does not have that and is being looked at as the next big residential development area. We saw in our last agenda item a view of vacant residential area. Some of that is not as vacant as that map shows. My fear is without identifying areas in some of those planned developments, these developers are coming in and building 15, 20 homes at a time, but there's no parkland associated with it. Even though you have a large swath, for instance, in the northwest part of the city, you have a very large swath, there's going to be no parkland whatsoever because these developers are going to put up their 10 to 15 lots and then move on, and there's no dedicated parkland. I'd like to see that ahead of time. I also am from an area of the state originally where impact fees were levied. I remember when they first came through, everybody hated them. After they were through, they were loved because that was the revenue to get these parks. As a matter of fact, these developers, you buy 500 acres and put up 1,500 homes. They were required to either give land for park space that was equal to the formula of how many residents per how many acres, or pay a substantial impact fee to develop that somewhere else in the area. I think we need to do that because you do have areas, we looked at a residential overlay today, there's going to be no park anywhere near there. Like I said, the northwest side of the city, no park, there's a trail. I mean, if you want to call walking in a straight line as far as you want to, that's great, but where's the baseball field, where's those types of things? So we need to dedicate and set these things up ahead of time so the developers in these larger areas know that there's going to be dedicated park space.
Yeah, and again, I'll reference you back to the map on roughly, I think it's right around page 42, but the proposed acquisition map. And a lot of those, the northwest side is where we're looking at some significant community parks because we see that as well. And I think it goes back to Kathy's point that the recent development that took place down off of Ripple Road, Ripple in Oregon in that area, it wasn't a huge development, but we talked with the developer as far as the different phases they're going to have, as well as looking at the potential to have to purchase some additional property. So I agree, even though it's a small development, we need to get that parkland, at least get it started on, all right, we need 3 acres, and then we could possibly buy another 5 acres and make it a 10-acre park. I wanted to make sure John had an opportunity to address any questions, or at least give an overview from his perspective, if you don't mind, or do you
Sure.
care to hear from John? Thanks.
Thank you.
We don't have, our copy does not have your nice maps, fold out maps.
Yeah, neither does Ray's. So the
Neither
the
does
latest
Ray's.
the latest and
Is that another,
greatest.
is that an extra $10,000 to get the final copy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's
That's what
within the
somebody's
contract.
worth.
So these are the next deliverable. So throughout the process, we've provided deliverables, and I'll introduce myself for those of you who don't know. John Kinnear, President with Rattler Corporation. This is our rewrite of the 2011 document. So we've had the opportunity to be very aware and get to know the parks very well in producing this document the first time, and then coming back and revisiting the rewrite for this year. So that really allows us to kind of immerse ourselves in the community and really get to know the parks very well, get to know the community very well, and then also be able to answer questions, about park deficiencies and things like that that may be perceived. You brought up a great point. There's the school sites, the cooperatives with the public school properties. A large portion of the city is UW Oshkosh. There's all that recreation facility that we really can't count according to the standards, but we know it's here and it's mentioned. There's also, the county. That's a large tract of land with park development right within the city limits on the north side. So that really, the document really allows you to dive into a lot of those details and see really the assets that we have here to build on. That's really the purpose of this document, is to help guide that process, to help when Darren and planning are working with developers to open the book, find the park service areas, find the needs, really identify the needs in the community for future development, and give us that roadmap. Since 2001, I think one of the direct benefits you can see from this document is the master planning that's been generated from this, the opportunity to budget for the capital improvement budgets, to put dollars in for stepped improvements. We prioritize those. This document allows us to do that: high, medium, low, 5, 10, 15-year, 20-year priorities, so we can really get that broad look ahead. So, and there's been a lot of success since 2011 to the rewrite now of implementation of this plan. So it really gives the city staff and the city officials good guidelines and a great one document to complement the other comprehensive plans, the trail plans, and really look at these plans comprehensively and very easily within the city. So this rewrite takes into account the work that's been done, and then also is continuing on with the future development needs that we've identified through polling the community, talking to the user groups, talking to staff and other city officials to really see where the parks development would want to go in the city of Oshkosh. So that's been a success, having the opportunity to provide the rewrite, as well as allowed us to really expand our knowledge of the city and see what's working and what needs improvement, and really adapt this comprehensive outdoor recreation plan to the future as it's developing and moving in the city of Oshkosh.
Kiefer, ahead. Question, comment?
Just a couple things. First of all, I applaud the Parks Department and Rattler for the work they're doing with the Sawyer Creek Neighborhood Association and the Roosh Park. We are looking at future development, trail connections in areas that haven't even been platted yet. So it's really hard to do. But we're looking at that and trying to make, and that's really just a passive park trail system that we're looking at, but a rather large system when you look at, from one end all the way over to the Y kind of thing, if we ever get, that far someday. So I applaud the efforts. They are kind of looking at the future growth there, and that is another area of the city that is really lacking a large park or a neighborhood park, that in the little further north of the Sawyer Creek area. Too is really lacking. So it's good to see that we're working on that comprehensive plan. So just compliment to the Parks Department for all the work that's been done in the last 5 or 6 years. Just the small improvements, bathroom updates, field updates throughout the city. Very nice to see that happening. But I'd be remiss without saying something about baseball diamonds. As Ray knows, I've been after him for 10 years or since he's been here, about baseball diamonds and softball diamonds in the city. And I really hope that we can somehow put together our efforts. And it's not so much going to be the groups that the OYBs and the softball groups, those little nonprofits that run those programs for youth and they're not the ones that are going to be able to fund these kind of things. It's really going to have to come from corporate sponsorship type stuff and private partnerships. Obviously, city dollars as well. But we really like to see some type of comprehensive baseball, softball complex somewhere in the city. And I know there's some private stuff going on possibly in areas of town. But if you go to communities like Greenville, whose complex is really old but still very nice, or Hortonville, those small communities are just unbelievable in what they have for baseball, softball complexes. And if they can do it, we should be able to do that in Oshkosh, given our tax base and everything. So I just hope that's continually pushing along, and hopefully someday we'll see something come up. So
I can just address that real quickly because I'm sure others in the community have the same feelings that you do. Back in 2015, we actually worked with Rattler Corporation to do a facility assessment of all school, county, city-owned athletic facilities. And we finished that up in 2016, and we found what John is saying. One, we have some deficiencies in a complex, which other communities have, but also we have very poor field conditions in all areas. The school district has noticed that. We have noticed that. We've been putting money in the local groups we work with help us to put money into some of the fields. But at that time, I'm also on the Convention Visitors Bureau Board, and part of our strategic plan, we know that puts heads in beds in communities. So the Convention Visitors Bureau Board actually paid for the study through Rattler Corporation because they would like to see something like that happen. We've had continued discussions, and now with having a new executive director at the Convention Visitors Bureau, we resurrected that group of people that have that interest. We just met, I think about 3 weeks ago, kind of doled out some job tasks for some of those individuals, and I think you're going to start to see a little bit more movement in going forward on some type of a complex. So hopefully this plan commission will hear about that in the near future as well.
Okay. This is referenced in the back of this plan, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The other John?
Yes, seems I'm the only one who hasn't spoken. I guess this would be for Darren and for you, Ray. Are we looking also at our extraterritorial area, our 3-mile sphere of influence in these township areas that we may be bringing into the city in the next 5 years, 10 years? Are we looking at what they have for parks and what we can hopefully, with our influence, say, hey, maybe we can get more park areas in this area? Because I know we have things that come before us from these townships that we have our say on. And I'm just saying, is there some way we can kind of work with these surrounding areas and say, hey, if we're going to come in, let's keep your area, it behoove them, because a lot of them, they don't want it as densely packed as the city. Just saying it's something to look towards the future that would help.
That's where you use your mapping powers to do something like that. Extraterritorial plat review, like I said, the ability to require them to put a park into it, I think it's.
I'm just saying suggestions. I'm not necessarily saying we're going to strong arm them. We're just saying, hey, this is what we want to do, and this would
Maybe
actually.
we asked nicely.
Yes. Yeah. instead of being the bully,
Right.
But I'm just
Carrot
saying
instead of stick, right?
it's an avenue. It's opening up a discussion with them.
And we have had that, as Darren said, with Algoma, with their administrator being a former city employee and part of Darren's division. I think that door has opened up a little bit more.
Plan commission member for
Yes.
one meeting. I mean,
So I think,
great.
yes, we are in certain instances. I know that the bike and ped, we're looking at trail connections at least to have that regional trail system. But I think you're right that a little bit more of that communication. There are some elected officials that have also expressed that to the neighboring townships as well, and I think you're going to continue to see that.
And I just kind of want to piggyback on a little bit here while I have my couple minutes. As far as the softball parks and the parks idea going towards the corporate sponsorships and whatnot, that was something I've been talking about since I ran for council almost 10 years ago. And it just seems like it always falls on deaf ears, and it's great to hear that it's not anymore.
I think we have some really active individuals in this group. I think they're going to be starting to look at forming their own sports commission or sports authority to have oversight of this. We've got somebody from the banking industry, a younger gentleman who's part of OYB, saying, I want to take on some of the fundraising and corporate sponsorship. So he's off and running right now. We need that. We need that public-private partnership because it's something that I can't own and operate. The school district can't. So we have to do it together and figure out a way to do that.
Also, don't forget winter use of parks.
Yes.
That's my code for sledding and ice skating. And cross-country skiing and tobogganing and all the other stuff, you know. Anything else for these two gentlemen? Kathy?
Since I have one, I think a sports complex like you're talking about would be great. But personally, I think it should be on the edge of the city because
That's what we're exploring.
Infill of this kind of thing just creates problems with neighborhoods.
Correct.
All right.
That's what we're exploring.
Other comments or questions? There's a reporter here, so nobody else. Ed?
I have one for Darren, but I don't want to make these
Okay.
guys stand for
All right. Thanks,
any
guys.
longer than they have to, so.
Back to the commission.
So we talk about the ordinance for the impact fee dedication. That thing, I mean, I think you've acknowledged its insufficiency. It's a pretty blunt instrument, and it is not all that effective. Given that we are likely to start seeing some renewed sort of single-family home type subdivision development, given that we're starting to see sort of that engine get going again locally, I guess, is that a priority for you guys to bring a rewrite of that back through? Or, I mean, what, like, timeline-wise, like, we know it doesn't work.
Yeah.
We know we have priorities. We know we have needs. I guess, what is our timeline for, like, looking at, and I'm not asking, hey, Darren, when are you going to rewrite this ordinance personally? But, Darren, when are you going to rewrite this ordinance personally? Or is this a question for, maybe this is a Ray question, I don't know.
I think it'll be a joint effort. I think what we need to do is do surveys of some of the surrounding communities again, so that we have some justification, just like we showed on the parkland efficiencies. Let's find out what's out there, especially in this region. Correct. But I would agree with Darren. We've talked about this since I've been here, and we haven't gotten to it. And it's been in our 5-year plan for the last 10 years now.
Well,
So
I mean, it's not good, right? Like, we know it's not good, and we know
It's outdated.
it's outdated.
There's got to be models out there somewhere for
It
us.
doesn't necessarily work in all situations. Like, it works in some situations, it doesn't work in others. You know, it allows, what did we say of it was 400 or like $200 a lot?
$200 at CSM or platting and $200 at building permitting.
Yeah.
And multiple family units are just shy of that.
Yeah, so I mean, like some of that, and in instances, there may be places where that's appropriate and not appropriate, so I don't know, it just doesn't, I don't know. I'm just wondering when we might see.
Mark, hold on. Mark just raised a good point. We did get a technical assistance grant from East Central. At least I think he did.
I believe we
we did. To help us we have rewriting the subdivision regs on our radar screen, but you know, there's a lot of things going on. So
What is it technical? Is that like, did they just give you a guy who writes it for you?
They
Is
give
that
us some hours. So
Oh, okay.
So right.
literally they just give you a guy?
Well, they give us assistance.
Right.
We got approved to help work on a complete streets policy for the city developer. We're working on that. We have assistants to currently help us to update the pen and bike plan. So yeah, they give us staff.
I guess maybe my sort of my line of commentary here is that this is an ordinance that I think we've all acknowledged is bad enough at the moment that it might work as the first priority for whatever technical assistance you might have, because we are going to miss opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
With some of this development activity that I think is starting up, and I agree. There are instances in which, you know, I think, you know, sometimes the payment in lieu maybe is appropriate, but in situations where you're working with 10, 20, 30, 40 acre parcels, I mean, 2 acres of that can go a long way towards providing recreational activities in an area like, you know, Tom, you said on the northwest side, you're 100% right. Short of Waiwash going to, you know, Shiocton, you got nothing. And an acre, 2 acres for my friends who have kids in that neighborhood would be spectacular. So I guess I'm just sort of, if that can be a priority, I think you're going to do yourself a disservice if it's not an immediate priority.
Immediate priority.
Sounds
I
good.
mean, no, it's a priority. I mean, but I have a lot.
I know you have all
I a lot of
immediate priorities, but
I got to help you with getting, working on your stuff.
thanks.
But no.
So he's holding you back.
Ed
Yeah.
is holding, no.
I'll stop
no.
being an anchor on you as much as I can. How does that sound?
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. And I mean, we're struggling with it right now. We have a subdivision coming through that on the northwest, west side on 9th, and it's a subdivision, and we've been struggling trying to get them to give us enough and donate us enough land, usable land for us to work through as an effective small little park system. So, this is where we're going to start running into the rub on these things. Is the developer has one idea of what a park should be. We have another idea where that park should be, and we butt
Yeah.
heads quite a bit coming through. So
Well, and that's maybe where the ordinance could have helped out had it been a little better. I guess that's a really bad, vague term, but like it was a little better. Maybe the guidance and the expectations of people developing these subdivisions would be a little different when they get to your door. You know what I'm saying?
they expect not to do it. They expect not.
I get that.
to,
I get that.
donate.
That's the nature of the business. I
Yeah.
totally understand that. But having a little bit more of a roadmap and having a little bit more sort of upfront expectations that and I know you guys are always very good when you do implement new policies like this in meeting with stakeholder groups, giving people the opportunity to to sort of have an input in shaping that policy. Running it through that process the way you guys typically do, I think there's a way to get this done. I just hope it gets done soon enough that we don't miss a lot of opportunities.
Sure, and it's going to get hot. I mean, we're seeing a little bit of changes in the market, so yes, it's got to get done. But it's a matter of me being all probably. There's only one me, and there's only one Mark. And,
There's only one.
well,
you-
there's only one me. But
I think we all acknowledge that.
it's
Yeah.
a priority.
All right, anything else before we wrap this up? And you're just looking for a motion to,
Yep.
Bless this.
Yeah.
I'll gladly make that motion.
all right.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? All right, let's call the roll to formalize this.
Prop,
Aye.
Owen,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Kiefer,
Aye.
Barry, Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
All right, do we have anything else here, sir?
Not today.
All right,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Wow.
We're done. Look at that.
Thanks, everybody.